One of these things is not like the others. Which one is different? Do you know? Can you guess which thing is not like the others? And I'll tell you if it is so. So, which one of these bills is different? H.R. 212, the Sanctity of Human Life Act. For starters, does this thing even count as a bill? It doesn't actually look like a bill. What it looks like is the rough draft of an idea for a bill that a congressman might scribble on the back of a cocktail napkin with a ballpoint pen while they're talking to a lawyer at a hotel bar. This bill is so vague, it could authorize the government to do practically anything short of coming to your house and changing your oil. If you take this bill as it's written, it would be perfectly reasonable to assume that this bill would ban the death penalty nationwide, that it would mandate free universal health care, that it would mandate all sorts of harm reduction methods to prevent HIV and other threats to human life. But the fact is, it's not going to do any of these things because it's not a Sanctity of Human Life Act. It's an anti-abortion act. That's the only thing it's going to do. And you notice that it is not a mandate that government must protect human life. It just authorizes them to do it when they want to. If they don't feel like doing it in any given instance, they really don't have to because the bill doesn't make them. So the question then is, how is this bill going to be an anti-abortion bill if Roe versus Wade forbids anti-abortion laws? How is this actually going to work? And why is it that we have states passing new anti-abortion laws that are unconstitutional as soon as they hit the books? So this is where we come to what makes this bill different. The other bills are all anti-woman, but they are primarily anti-poor woman. The amount to which any given woman will lose her rights to those bills is inversely proportional to her income. These bills are the suppressive fire of the religious rights attack. Their goal is to reduce access to legal abortion while it is still legal. H.R. 212, on the other hand, looks a lot more like a sniper, sitting there calmly and patiently lining up its sights on Roe versus Wade, with the goal of recriminalization. And this is how I think that it might happen. If H.R. 212 is passed, anti-abortion state governments may start looking at this new law as a great big federal permission slip to start enforcing anti-abortion laws in open defiance of Roe versus Wade. Fact is, as of 2008, at least 16 states had pre-1973 abortion laws still on their books. Now, some of these laws would be enforceable if Roe versus Wade were overturned. Others would have to wait for court injunctions to be lifted. But these laws are still there. And then you have the new laws that have been passed since then. If a state governor stands up and says, well, this new law gives me the power to protect all life within the state, so I'm going to start enforcing this law until the court tells me I can't. This is obviously going to generate court cases, and I think that that's exactly what they want. They want a court case that will wind its way up through the system through appeals and verdicts and publicity until it finally makes its way to the Supreme Court. And they're hoping that by the time that happens, they will have packed the court so thoroughly that they'll get the ruling they want. which is that this Sanctity of Human Life Act constitutes a reasonable exception to the 14th Amendment protections that were cited in Roe v. Wade, thus overturning Roe v. Wade. As soon as that happens, you might as well just go to your closet and get your Nehru jacket back out, because not only is it fashionable again, but chances are someone's going to need that hanger. And if you think that that doesn't sound reasonable, if you think that doesn't sound like something that could happen, the fact of the matter is, these people have never been reasonable. They've never been rational. They've never been honest. They've never been compassionate. They've never really cared what the law said. They've never really cared what the people want. What they care about is winning. And they want to win regardless of what they have to do. For them, the ends have always justified the means. Consider in New York City an anti-cruising law that was struck down in 1983, which was used to arrest gay men for publicly propositioning other men. Struck down as unconstitutional in 1983, has been enforced thousands of times since then for arrests and citations that have absolutely no legal basis. The same thing is true of an anti-begging law and a law criminalizing loitering in public transport facilities. These laws have been responsible for over 20,000 unconstitutional arrests and citations in New York City. Officials will enforce unconstitutional laws if they think that they can get away with it and if they feel like doing it. Also consider that in January of this year, Supreme Court Justice Scalia, or Scalia, however you pronounce his name, in an interview in California Lawyer, openly stated that as far as he is concerned, the Constitution does not forbid discrimination on the basis of sex. As far as he is concerned, women have no equal protection under the Constitution. The 14th Amendment does not apply to them. And he specifically stated that there is no prohibition in the Constitution against passing anti-abortion laws. This is a Supreme Court justice who has stated for the record, women do not have equal protection in this country. And this is why it's very important to keep up the pressure on the Senate, to keep up the pressure on Obama. I think it may very well have been deliberate that H.R. 212 was not introduced first. That they assumed that the first bill they introduced in this series of bills was going to get the most activism riled up. It was going to get the strongest fight. And every time that they introduced another one, the response would be a little more muted. People would start getting fatigued. People would start moving on, start losing hope. And by the time they got to 212 with its vague and symbolic language that looked less concrete and dangerous than the others, it might be the one that they'd be most likely to get through. And unfortunately, it may be the only one that they really need. In the long term, H.R. 212 may be the most dangerous one. We need to oppose all of these bills. And we need to make sure that no matter how long this goes on, that we go on along with it. One of these things is not like the others. Which one is different? Do you know? Can you guess which thing is not like the others?